We'll start the session. My name is Amr Naga. I'm from MSP Cloudy Team.
Hello, and I'm Hadi again from MSP Expert Cloudy Team.
We'll talk now about what is Windows Azure and what is cloud computing in general as a beginning.
In brief, just few minutes to recap what's Windows Azure in few minutes.
Well, cloud computing consists of three layers, which is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, or software plus service. Platform as a service is what we call Windows Azure now. Platform as a service is the platform we use to develop our applications, or platform as a service is a platform we use to do the Azure applications to be installed on the cloud to be used by many users all over the world. The concept of cloud is easily that we share the concept of processing our applications on the internet to be divided over many countries and not available in one place only. Isn't that Hadi, or what?
The main target of Windows Azure of the cloud computing is to always provide the high availability and high scalability for my application. So my application, if I host it on Windows Azure or on the cloud computing, it will not, it will hardly, it will be always available and it will hardly face any problem, unless it's bad. It's bad developed, or the developer didn't do it right. So it's always about sharing responsibility between the cloud provider and the cloud consumer, whether it's a developer, whether it's an end user, or whether it's IT or an operator. Mm-hmm. So now we're talking about what's Windows Azure. Just in brief, Windows Azure provides, as a normal operating system, it provides the developer with two main things. It's the processing power and the storage. So today we're gonna focus mainly on the compute node, or on the processing, or on what, power. Yeah, or on what Windows Azure provides us as processing power. So focusing on compute node, mainly Windows Azure, or you can develop any kind of application based on Windows Azure using any programming language, whether Java, C++, C, native code. Actually, it's C++, it's native code. C#, Java, C++. What else? Ruby.
JavaScript and HTML.
Yeah, everything you can code it, or you can develop any application using on Windows. Yeah, you can develop any application using any programming language on Windows Azure.
This is an interface only, or it is an interface plus code running in the background?
It's both. You can get C++ applications with high, and we'll go on this through the application, through the presentation. However, you can develop both whether in the UI or whether in the backend,
okay,
or in the background process. So let's first define what is role. A role is where you can develop your application, whether a web application or whether a backend application. So the role is where you put your old code, your website, your developed work. So after you develop the application, you put it in a role. You have to do several configuration file, or you have to modify several configuration file so it can fit the requirements for the traffic or for the user that they are using your application. Would you like to give us some examples for the roles?
Some example from the I think some example from the roles would be the WebRole and the WorkerRole. The WebRole is actually running it's the interface or the browser role that we see, as the WorkerRole is the code running in the background. Isn't it, or what?
Yeah, WebRole is it's from its name. You can get it. WebRole. It's for developing any kind of web application using any programming language, whether HTML5, Silverlight, PHP, ASP.NET, any kind of this web applications. So mainly WebRole is focusing on any normal web application. So let's go on for the second type, the WorkerRole. Well, we're not, for those who are asking about the presentation, we are not presenting right now. We'll share the screen when we go to the development part. And this is just a smooth introduction to get you understand what's the compute node and what's Windows Azure and what are the differences. I think we will share the presentation, and we will have a presentation and we will share it with you, and it will be put on the MSP Egypt fan page and along the pages or the events that we have created. So the another type of the role is, as Amr said, is the worker role. The worker role is, imagine it as a background process consuming the processing power of the of Microsoft servers or the cloud of Microsoft processing power or the cloud processing power. For example, I can give you a small example similar to this. Is when you develop an application or when you open your computer, you might find it very slow. That's simply because there's nothing wrong with the computer, but it's because there's some applications running or some services running in the background consuming your processing power and your CPU, so you don't find it. So it will take some time to run your application on it.
So you mean it's like taking the services when consuming the service on a local PC, it's the same concept in the cloud?
Yep, the same concept goes for the cloud. For WorkerRole, do the same thing. It's like running your background process. Rather than running your background process on your computer or on your laptop, you will do it on the Microsoft data center or on Microsoft servers. So you will not consume any processing power at the client side. Why we use WorkerRole? WorkerRole can be used in several domains. It can be used for image processing, for example. It can be used for stuff like that consume a lot of processing power. So WebRole we can consider it as the user interface that we're working on it. That you can the end user can work on it. Is the WebRole is the user interface that can that can work with the user interactions. So for the WorkerRole, it doesn't have a UI. It's something that's run in the background that requires that consume the Microsoft processing power or the Microsoft servers processing power, and there's a connection that can be made between the WebRole and the WorkerRole. The last type of roles, I will tell you about the last type of role. Then I will take some questions. The VM role, it's mainly designed for the pre-developed applications. For example, if you do have an application and you don't need to redevelop it again, or you don't want to redevelop it again to match the Windows Azure requirements or to consume the Windows Azure storage and so on, it will take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money. So they designed something called the VM role, and we have also something called the virtual machine, but we will focus today on the VM role. The VM role mainly takes a virtual machine from the Windows server. You create it with all the application, with all the data required, and you send it directly to the Windows Azure to work with it. So, do you have any questions? Is there any kind of questions?
I think they don't have any questions.
Yeah. Come on, Remo. Well, the question is, isn't that require a high network usage, like high bandwidth?
I think it depends on the size of the data you are accessing. Or what?
Well, there's two kind of networks here. There is something on your site, and there's a bandwidth on the Microsoft Windows Azure website. So depending on your application, like Amr said, depending on your storage, you can define the required bandwidth at Microsoft website. It's something that will cost you some money to match your bandwidths. So that depending on the available network you have. So does that okay? But we are talking about background processes. Yep, we're talking about background process. It's the background process. You mean that we consume a high bandwidth? Well, let me recap a little bit. I will tell you more about the worker role. The worker role is something that work that doesn't need a network, that work on the Microsoft platform, on the Microsoft servers. All you have to need is to send the data, and after that it can run from 1 second to forever. And you can trigger the event when you want it to start, and you can trigger the event when you want it to stop. So it can take a long time and send you the response after maybe after a month or two, after a week, after 1 year. Depends
after
on
the
how
process finishes job.
yeah, but yeah, it depends on when you want to the process to stop and to send you the response. Okay, Hassan, sorry we could not hold on. We'll try to record the session and send it to you, or to upload it when we finish.
Will be available online after finishing.
Yeah. So now we're talking about we talked about the roles. Let's talk about how the developer can maintain the availability of the application on Windows Azure. Okay. Now let's say that I have an application that needs a lot of a big high traffic. There's a big traffic coming to it. So how can I maintain the availability of the application? Okay. Simply it will go with, you know, on Windows Azure, your application will not be hosted on a physical server. It will be hosted on a virtual machine. Okay, so whether you're developing WebRole, WorkerRole, or VMRole, the application will be hosted on a virtual machine on Windows Azure. So to meet the requirement, to meet the incoming traffic, whether it was a very big traffic or a very low traffic, you have to create a number of instances of the virtual machine to meet the incoming traffic, whether it's a low, whether it's a high traffic. Which means, if I am expecting a high incoming traffic, I have to create rather than 2 VM or 2 virtual machines, I'll have to create 5 or 6 virtual machines depending on the traffic. So it's not only about the number, and I can create several virtual machines with each with a defined processing power, with the defined RAM, with a defined hard disk, but it doesn't only depend on the processing power, it also depends on the traffic. With the increasing number of traffic, I will have to increase the number of the virtual machine. Certainly, each virtual machine will cost me some money, depending on the virtual machine processing power assigned, depending on the RAM assigned, depending on the bandwidth assigned to it. Okay, so let's go on for a bit for development. Now I will share my screen. I will share my Visual Studio. So okay. Regardless of what has been written now, I don't know. Wanna be my Valentine, son? Okay, never mind. So, assuming that I create new project on Windows Azure, I'll go on with the roles and instance and the configurations of the Windows Azure project. Now I will create new project. Just file new project, and I'll find cloud. After that, I'll find Windows Azure Cloud Service.
They will ask what kind of Visual Studio we'll use. I think we can use Visual Studio 2007, 2012 and 2010.
Yeah, you can use any kind of Visual Studio now. I think it's 2010 or 2012. You can work on it. However, my point is that you have to run .NET Framework 4.0 or 4.5 to run on Windows Azure, not less than that. 3.5 and 3.0 are no longer recommended on Windows Azure. Okay, so
and of course includes Azure Architecture.
Yeah, sure. So I create a cloud project under Visual C#. This example will go through only with C#. Under Visual C#, I'll go to Cloud tab, Windows Azure Cloud Service, and then name my project, for example, Batiha, and I'll create my project. Yeah, it's gonna take some while. It's gonna take, I think, depending
of
on.
the processor.
Yeah, I'm using a lot of application on my laptop, so
Maybe
it's
you
gonna
can
take some
move to the
time.
cloud later.
Okay. I'm just trying to be some funny. Okay. Okay. Now I create my solution, which is I call it بطيخة. Now I have to define what kind of rules that I want to put in it. Okay. Now we do have several types of files of application that I can put in it. However, my main focus is always on WebRole and WorkerRole in this session. Okay. There's several types of web roles and there is several types of WorkerRole. Now let's go for a normal web application, ASP.NET application.
ASP.NET
So I will add it like this. Just I click the button add and I'll name it أي حاجة. Okay, and just press OK. Now it's creating my solution named بطيخة and inside it the web role called أي حاجة. So now it's gonna take some while, just depending on your computer. Yeah, mine is not the best. Okay. Now as we see, we have our solution called بطيخة. Under it we will have two projects, one called أي حاجة and one called بطيخة. The أي حاجة is the normal web application that I have created. Okay. For بطيخة is the configuration files and the roles assigned to the cloud project that I'm working with. Under بطيخة I will find a role called a folder called roles that contains all the roles that I can put in an application. So now under roles I find أي حاجة. This is my web application. Okay. Under that
So it's a normal ASP.NET application?
Yeah, just أي حاجة. This is an ASP.NET application. Okay, under that I'll find three configuration files. Actually, they're supposed to be two, but one is called the service configuration.cloud. This is for the configuration. This is what I'm opening right now, I think. Yeah, this is the configuration that for my role that should be run on Windows Azure. Okay, and the second one I'll explain it later. I'll explain the service configuration later on. The service configuration.local for running my application on a local machine. A service definition is for the definition of the my application, whether the endpoints of the application, the how it's gonna be binding with the other websites, and so on. So back to the service configuration. Service configuration here defines the configuration of my virtual machine where I will host my website or my web role. Okay. Here, for example, my instance count equal 1. This means that I will create only one virtual machine where I will host my application or my role. Okay. I can make it, for example, 5 to run to have 5 virtual machines running in the same time to meet the incoming traffic and to meet my customer satisfaction. Okay. So who told you that? Never mind. Okay, so if I just click on running and run on Internet Explorer, we will see how my web role will work on Windows Azure. We are expecting that we will face an error here. Yeah, this is the error I was thinking about. Windows Azure tool for Microsoft Visual Studio must run in elevated, which means that to run any application on Windows Azure or to decode any application on Windows Azure, you have to run Windows Azure as administrator, not otherwise. So I'll close my Visual Studio and we'll restart it again. Okay, thank you, Hassan. And apparently, never mind. Okay. To run your Visual Studio on to ban to run Visual Studio on as administrator, you have to right click on it and click run as administrator. Okay. Well, this is gonna take some time to run. Yeah.
So does anyone have any question about
Meanwhile,
regarding till Visual Studio runs?
I mean, does anyone have any question about anything related to what we just said?
Especially as a part of the worker rule.
Why should I make it 5? No, this is just an example, Muhammad. This is you don't have to make it 5. I just made an example to show you how it will be run. Like you can make it 2, you can make it 3, you can make it 10, you can make it 20 depending on your needs. Certainly, as the number of the virtual machine increases, you will have to pay each virtual machine you create. You will have to pay its fees. But with each virtual machine you create, you have to create it to meet your customer satisfaction if you are facing a big traffic incoming on your virtual machine or on your application.
Processing power of the app, of course.
So let me see if my Visual Studio is running. Yep, here it is running. So I will share it with you right away. Just give me a few seconds. I'm just testing a few things if it's gonna work to make sure. Yeah, actually, I opened to Visual Studio. I don't know why, but never mind. It's opening the solution right away.
You are in the administrator mode.
So I will share the screens right away. Yeah, Muhammad seems that he'll be asking some question. We were waiting for you, Muhammad, until the Visual Studio opens my solution. Yep. That depends on the number of users you are expecting. That's the number of traffic. That's the number of incoming traffic you are facing. Let me tell you something. But just to be clear, the cloud computing is not targeting end user. It's targeting mainly business. So when I develop an application for a business need, that means that I know whether the outcomers, I mean my customers, the number of my customers coming to my application, and the number of my employees that are using the application. So this can define this can help me define the number of the virtual machine to create on the Windows Azure to define to meet my customer satisfaction. Is that clear? Okay, so let me move on to my solution. Yeah, sure, this can be edited later. You can edit later the number of the virtual machine you want to create, but you cannot easily change the virtual machine processing power required. And if I assigned a virtual machine with a certain processing power, to change this, it will require I think a few seconds of drawbacks or drop downs of my application. It will not be available for a few seconds, I think so. But everything can be done. You can easily scale up and scale down. You can easily increase your processing power or delete or decrease it depending on your needs. So let me share my screen again with you. The program that we are working on. I don't know. Did you close my? No, here it is. I just clicked running, but I have a problem with the sharing. I don't know why. Well, Link has a problem. It doesn't see my application running on it.
Maybe because you're running two versions.
I'll close one. Yeah, I'll share my desktop. No problem with that. Yeah, here it comes. I'm just. Yeah, here we are. Now this is my application that we have created. My solution named Batiha, and with the web application or the web role called أي حاجة. Now I just clicked on running on Internet Explorer. As you can see, it's deploying. It's taking some time to run on Windows Azure emulator. So let's wait and see on the output.
So it's now emulating the Azure environment in a local machine.
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to show you now. If you go to upstairs to your, what we call it, the menu bar.
Yes.
Okay, the menu bar you'll find an icon.
Sorry,
the taskbar, right? The taskbar you'll find something called the compute emulator and the storage emulator under the icon of the Windows Azure. Well, as we previously said, that Windows Azure is mainly about everything about compute node that provide processing power, and the second thing is providing the storage. This is two emulators to help you run. Compute emulator is for running application, and storage emulator is for running storage on Windows Azure on your local PC. It's like you are running it on Windows Azure. So I might face some problems now, but let me show you the compute emulator. Yeah, this is what I'm expecting. So I have some problems with my Visual Studio. However, I have to show you the emulators. What the point is, I want to show you the emulators. I'm not sure if I can do this right now, but it's not that good to have a computer like that. However, yep, here we go. You see under service deployment, yeah, here you can see under that you can find the number of solutions that you are having. I know I have a problem with running my application now on this computer. However, under this you'll find the number of services that you're running right now on your local PC, and on each one you will find your virtual machine created under it. Your virtual machine will have several colors. One is green. The green means that you are running, that your application is running smoothly on Windows Azure or on the local emulator. The second one is the red, which means that there is a problem with the virtual machine. You have to restart it because it's facing some problems. And I think the orange one and the move one, which means that there's something wrong, but it's running. Your application is running. Okay. I'm sorry that my application is not running. On this laptop, on this computer, Amri didn't install the required things well. However, let me.
I installed it.
Yeah, apparently not well.
Apparently,
however,
I think you are using too much processing power.
Yeah, I know. However, let us go to the next step. Creating. Now we created the web role. Let's go to the next step, that creating a normal worker role. Okay. So, back to my Visual Studio. I have my web application called أي حاجة, okay, which is I consider it as a role. I have my cloud project called Batiha. It has the configuration files for my virtual machines and the role that I have already created, which is the web role. Okay. Now I want to create the worker role. Just simply go to the roles and right click on it and go to add a new worker role project. Now it comes with a pop-up a window that with different kinds of worker roles. Okay, So for now in this example we'll go to with the normal worker role. For example, I will call it Mango. Sorry, Mango. Never mind. There's something wrong with the laptop. Okay, I'll go click add, and we will have another project in my solution, in my Batikha solutions called Mango. It's taking too long.
Yeah, because of the processing power you're using.
Yeah. Now you can find my role under the role Mango is created. Yeah, with the project Mango is created under, and also it's assigned under the role folder.
So it's another C# project embedded in our solution?
Yep, it's another project embedded in our solution. You're right, man, but you just remind me of something, that each one of those will have its own configuration file.
Oh.
Okay, if we go to iHaga, we will find all the configuration files here. I can change the instance count I want from here. I can change the virtual machine that I want to assign the virtual machine, my project to it from here. Also for Mango, I can do the same things, change the number of instances of my virtual machines and the number of the processing power. I can change it from here. I can also change the settings. I'll come with this later on. At the endpoints of my application, the certificate that I will work on, the local storage if I will work with any kind of local storage, caching, the virtual network that I will create between several applications, or between my application running on my own premises and the application running on Windows Azure. So going through all this, what I mean is you can do the configuration whether through this page or through the service configuration and the service definition. On the service configuration, you will find the same thing. Role it will have its name, the count, the configuration settings, and so on. So here is my Mango. Let's assume that in this project I will do a simple application or a simple class that will require us to simply do addition. So I'll create a new class called addition.cs, and I will add it to my project. Okay. Before developing, before going deeper through the development, I have to explain a few things. When I create the Mango project, it will create automatically a class called WorkerRole, and it will create another class, and in my WebRole, it will create another class called WebRole. So why does it do that? Mainly, my role will have mainly three functions. Okay, one is called onStart, and the second one is if I will develop it, if I code it, it will be onStop, and the third one it will be run, which means that my role, once it starts, if there is a certain events, if there is a certain activity that we can do, it will be going after in the function, or we can call it from the function onStart. If that's an event that I want to do it when my role ends, or when my role stops, I can do it on the function onStop, and the same point if it's running, if I have a certain event while my role is running. So imagine that each role of these will run in a separate different machine, depending on the number of instances I want. You can work with the onStart, onStop, and run depending on the demands you want, and you can make connections between the virtual machines of the WorkerRole and the WebRole to make a better application and very high scalable and available applications. So back to our example. I will do a simple addition class that's just private integer. That's all public integer addition. This is my constructor, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll take two parameters, which is integer x. Or let's say just an integer x. Never mind. You will go with the rest. And return x plus blah blah blah. Okay, whatever the number. So my web role will take let's say that I will create a new web role called a new form, called web form 1, no problem. In this web form 1 that I have just created, I will let you do the user interface. All I need is to get the number from here. I will send it back to, I'll send it to the worker role, so the worker role can do the additions and get back to me the answers. Okay, I will not focus on the easy thing that can be done or can normally be done. I will focus on how the connection between the web role and the worker role can be made. Mainly, the web role and worker role, the connection can be made using two ways. One is the WCF, or the Windows Communication Foundation. This is the service-oriented architecture implementation from Microsoft. And the second one is using the Microsoft Windows Azure Queue storage. We will not go in depth in the storage. However, I'll give you a small introduction about what's the queue. I'm quite sure that all the attendees have attended or know better than me, actually, the data structure, the linked list, the stack, the queues, and so on. Well, this is the queue in our case is the same. It's something like a tube that connects both of the roles, the web role and the worker role. Certainly, the first in is the first out, and so on. Whether we can the web role, the queue can be from the web role to the worker role, or from the worker role to the web role. You can control that depending on your demands, or on your needs. So let's start with developing. So it's to work with the role, we have to work with to have to write the libraries you are gonna use, which is, in my example, is using Microsoft.Windows Azure using Microsoft.Windows Azure and using Microsoft.Windows Azure.Storage Client. So here I will create, for example, private void send. This is only for sending a number from the web role to the worker role. And here we go. The first thing I have to do is I have to understand is, as previously said, that Windows Azure is composed of two main nodes, the compute node and the storage node. The compute node and storage node, each one of these nodes run on a separate hardware resources than the other. So how can I reach my storage if my application runs on a separate hardware, on a compute node? How can I reach my storage existing on the other hardware? Simply, as I'm sure all of you have been through the database and so on, this is simply something similar to this. I'll have to create something called the connection string that help my application connect to my storage account created on Windows Azure. So what's the storage account? Once you get the Windows Azure account, you will have to create a storage account where you can easily manipulate and where you can easily work with the storage, whether it's a blob, whether it's queue, whether it's any kind of storage. So from here I will say I'll add setting. Okay, let's say I call it connection string, and its type is not a string, it's a connection string. And its value, we have three values, whether you run on your storage emulator, whether if you have already entered your subscription or many subscriptions, or you will enter the credential of your account later on in the Visual Studio. However, I will work with Windows Azure emulator. I know I have a problem with my emulators, but however, I'm just showing you how to work with it. So I'll create using development storage, and I will store my application. And I will save the work done. So, okay, yeah, I knew that I'm facing some problem, that some of you have lost connection. I will now try to share my screen again. Yep, and here we go. So the first thing to do is to create an account that deal with my account storage. Yep, whoever is not seeing the content now, it's being yeah. Here we go.
It's connecting.
Yep, it's connecting right away. Yeah, there's a network issue, so let me try again. Share my screen. Connecting, still connecting. Yeah, now I think it's working. Yeah.
Yes, it's working.
Okay. The first thing is to work with the storage is to create accounts that can deal with the different kind of storage that I have. Account in the development part, which means that I can create cloud storage account. I can name it account, and I say the cloud storage account dot some configuration setting. I'll explain everything right away. Okay. That means that I will create a cloud storage account called account. Okay, that it's just a data type. This account will take its values from the connection string that I have created called connection string that I have previously created in the properties page of the iHaga of my WebRole properties. Okay. After I created my account, I have to choose what type of storage that I want to work with under this in this application, which means if I want to work with queues or blobs or tables, which means that in my case I'll work with the cloud queue. So I have to create cloud queue client. I'll name it my client or client. Okay, and I will assign it to my account created. So this will help me create an account cloud queue client inside my account. After that, I'll have to create the tube between that will connect the cloud WebRole and with the WorkerRole. So which is, I can call it, for example, here queue and get the client dot get queue reference, and I can give you a reference. What's this? Okay. I have already created the client that defines what type of storage that I want to work with. The cloud queue now this is data type that defines the tube that will connect both the WebRole with the WorkerRole. So in my application, I can have several queues inside my account. How can I make a difference between each queue? Another issue is if I'm gonna send the queue to the from the WebRole to WorkerRole, how the WorkerRole will define the incoming queue through inside my account or inside my storage. This is simply by giving each queue a reference, which is in this case I'll call it a queue. Giving a queue a reference is not very flexible with its name or with the string. It cannot work with the numbers. It cannot work with symbols. It only work with lowercase letters.
I think someone is having a question or something.
So yeah,
yes,
come on, Raymond, let me have a break. Small break, yeah.
So we could explain to them what is the cloud storage account. This is something local, like a data type. What about if we deploy it on the cloud, for example? We'll create the whole thing from the beginning?
No, only if you have to create the account from the beginning. All you have to do is to change the configuration from here. Yeah, we said the connection string, it's connection string, but in this case we would give it the value of running on Windows Azure Storage Emulator. But if you're gonna run on Windows otherwise, you can enter your subscription or your credential and it will automatically work.
Oh.
It's not a big deal. So back to our Visual Studio. Now I have created the queue. So talking about the messages that I will pass it from the WebRole to the WorkerRole, I have to define a new data type called cloud queue message, which is in this example I'll call it message, and I will say that it's a new cloud queue message that it will need to take a parameter. So for example, in our case it can take a string or a bytes or array of bytes. So in my case I'll say that to work with the function you have to pass it a parameter called integer x, yep, and in new cloud queue message x dot to string, and here we go. I just said that I just created a cloud queue message. Okay, I named it message and I passed the number that will send it to the WorkerRole, and I change its format. I change it to a string. After that, all I have to do is to add the message to the queue, just simply by saying queue dot add message and pass it the message that I have. And here we go, our function is nearly done. This is mainly my function for sending whether a string or whether array of bytes from the web role. So coming to the next part, how can I receive this queue, and how can I receive this message? Let's go to the worker role. We'll have to do the same thing. For example, the worker role that we called Mango, we'll have to go to its settings to make sure that it will access my storage account on Windows Azure.
So it has the same connection string though.
Yeah, I can name it whatever I want. In this case, it's not. I don't have to name it. It's the same name. I can name it whatever you like. My con string. Okay, and I'll change connection string. And the same issue come here. Whether if I work with my storage account, if I do have a storage account online, or if I run Windows Azure on an emulator. In this case, I will run my emulator, which is not actually running. However,
I hope it runs.
Now going back to my class, which is I called addition. Let's say that I will create a new class. Why should I don't have to work here? This is just an example after all. So I'll call a class 1.ts. Here I say public integer or public string receive, which doesn't take any parameters. All I have to do also is to make sure that I'm working with the same libraries as using Microsoft.Windows Azure and using Microsoft.Windows Azure.storage client to make sure that I'm working with putting the right parameters inside my project. So now in this part I will try to make it. It might look a bit complicated, but I'll try to
simplify.
Not simplify, but to go faster with what is done so far. So I'll create, say, string x, and I'll go with the same process. It's cloud storage account dot from configuration setting. I'll have to define my the name of my configuration setting, which as I previously assigned in the Mango configuration. My con string dot I'll have to define what type of storage that I want to work with, which is create queue client. The next step is to get queue reference. I have to define which queue that I'm working with. Certainly in this case it has to be the same name of the queue. I put it before my queue. I will have to make sure that I write it with the same I don't know, with the same letter, with the same lowercase, with the same everything, to make sure that I get the right message. Yep. Dot get message in this port, and here we go dot to string, and here we go. I can now retrieve my message. So this is mainly the work done before, but in easier. But let me just you can make return, or can make this remove this and write return, and here we go. I have our function of receive ready. So I wish I have my emulators running, but we are facing some problems with the laptop. So I would be happy. I'll be more than happy if you try to implement this, and if you are and if you face any problem, just contact me, or I will send you right away my contact. I'll be more than happy to help you.
Anything you want, you can contact us at any time.
Yeah, this is my contact. You can find me online, whether Twitter, Facebook, WordPress, any time. Any kind of social media. You can find me hagain. You can send me an email on hagain@hotmail.com. You can find also on my blog all the namespaces related to the storage, whether queue, table storage, and blobs. Everything related to the storage so far, to the storage, with a full explanation and some of pre-developed examples. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you.